Welcome, everyone, to the Addict Truth Podcast. This is Recovery Jon. Happy to have you here today. I'm excited to speak to our guest, Josh.
Hey, how
We
you
linked
doing?
up on Instagram, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
How's
man.
everything
How you
going?
doing? Good, man. Good. Just grinding. You know how it goes. Every day working towards a better me. And that's it, man. Just I put my fitness first. Each and every day. It helps me mainly, stay on point in terms of structure, routine, discipline, in terms of what it takes truly to be to get and to stay sober. In terms of my diet and how I train, I think that's a huge piece for me. Is the fitness. So I'm on that I'm on that heavy every day. And then I also have a therapist I talk to once every 2 weeks, or every bi-weekly. But that's really it, man. What about you? How you been?
Been good, man. That's what grabbed my attention. I was scrolling on Instagram. I don't know, it popped up on my feed.
Yeah.
I saw you all flexed out, talking about doing perks. And I was like, all right, I could get with this.
Yeah, hell yeah.
But I'm excited to hear more about the story because honestly, we just chatted for a second.
Yeah.
But
I know this is all
it's going to be
organic
fun
right
for
now.
me. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
organic.
yeah.
So let's get to it.
Let's do it.
Let's start with where did you grow up? What's your childhood look like? And we'll build it up from there.
Okay, so I grew up in New Britain, Connecticut. It's about 10 minutes south of Hartford, Connecticut. And basically, I grew up to, I was raised, in a two-parent household at first with my mom and my dad. My mom was this, white, hardworking lady, and my dad was African American, and it was a chaotic, upbringing, to say the least. Both were dependent upon, opiates, and then obviously, my dad had his struggles with crack cocaine, and then my mom eventually she had the same thing. But it was tough. Definitely tough growing up. Them fighting, damn near every day in terms of, them not obviously being, coherent, much of the time. So, I had my brother who, we lived together throughout this time, and as time went on, my mom basically divorced my dad, and she got out on her own, and ended up doing her own thing, and ended up kind of getting sober on her own from my dad, being codependent with him. So once she had got out on her own, it was like she started kind of developing new habits herself. She was clean for a while. And she honestly showed, me, like what it was in terms of like a work ethic. She had 2 jobs. She was working. She grinded, worked hard every day for the things she wanted in life. And she's actually how I got my work ethic. Believe it or not. So it was dope. It was definitely a good transition for her to see, her kind of get out of that, toxic environment with my father and kind of like get up on her own. So that was kind of it. Growing up though, I mainly used like sports to kind of like combat all of like the trauma and bullshit that I was dealing with at home. Cause they both struggled with drugs for damn near, my whole childhood. My mom had gotten sober, but she was still, dabbling at, as time went on. But mainly it was like football that I gravitated to. Like she didn't want to let me play at first because she was like, just kind of like the parental, thing where it's like, I don't want my son to get hurt playing football. She was like that type of mom. But once she ended up letting me play, it was like, this is what I felt like I was meant to do. You know what I mean? Like was to get on that field and play ball. And I was just a natural, you know what I mean? Like just super athletic and just able to do really anything I wanted to do in terms of like, on the defensive side of the ball. I'm sorry, let me turn it. My bad, bro.
You're good.
Turn this up. But let me know if I should,
No, keep going.
So, she, where was I? Fucking my bad, bro. I've never done
Football.
So, all right. So basically, I got into football, and that was kind of like what, kept me sane essentially from everything that I was dealing with, on the home front. And that was huge because that was my outlet. You know what I mean? Like I didn't I didn't tell or talk to anybody about what I was dealing with at home. You know what I mean? So football was a way, I kind of expressed myself and was able to really, like be my true self, and that was something I gravitated to, and obviously did a lot of great things with. But yeah, that was pretty much my childhood. I ended up, I don't know what else we want to talk about.
Yeah, we can start that. Well, what? I mean, I could relate a lot because I know, like, for me, like, that's where I lost track. Like, baseball was huge for me, and I got into football and basketball, but that was, like, my outlet to feel good,
Yeah.
Once I, like, kind of started to go off the path, I saw sports go away, and I've always thought about that. Like, that was my healthy thing, and now it's funny because, like, we were talking walking in, like, I've always been big in fitness. You're obviously big in fitness.
Yep.
That's, like, our way in today, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's the same.
Yeah, it's a little nice outlet of healthy benefits. What was your position in football?
So I played in high school. We ran like a weird defense, so it was like an outside linebacker, like defensive end type of deal, where I was always kind of like getting after the quarterback.
Yeah.
So that was what we did.
I like
what
that
about you?
I played corner.
You played okay.
I was scrawny.
Yeah,
I'm
you
scrawny
look like
now.
a Jason Sehorn though type of dude.
I was little. I got hit, but I was tiny.
Yeah.
I got hit a lot when I was younger.
Yeah.
But so when you started, where did you start to see that kind of like trouble started to arise, or the first time you used? Where was that change?
This is crazy because I've never told nobody this. Probably only like two, maybe three people know this. It's kind of like I've never like told this because it's like some real deep shit. But the first time I used any type of opiates, I was at my brother's party for his kids in the summertime. And I think I was like 15 or 16, and everybody was inside, and my stepmom was on the balcony outside of the apartment. And, I had experience with like smoking weed at this time here and there, but I wasn't like a strong, weed smoker at the time. And up until this point, I've never done any type of pill or any type of substance that could really like alter me in any shape, way or form. So this was kind of like, this blew me out of the water when I think about it as an adult, you know what I mean? Like what transpired this day. And I go out to the balcony, and it's my stepmom. She's out there, and she's like crushing this pill. And, I see it all, chopped down, and she's like, just real casually too. She's like, hey, do you want to try this? And I'm thinking like, I'm like 15, 16 years old. I look up to her, obviously. And I'm like, yeah, what is it? So she was like, oh, it's just a pill. She was like, it's going to make you feel like weed does, but it's better, essentially. So I'm like, all right, cool. Next thing you know, I'm sniffing my first pill at fucking 15, 16 years old. Mm-hmm. And I just, now in hindsight, I'm looking at this shit, and I'm like, how fucked up is that for you to be 15 or 16 years old and you're exposed to this shit, and right, as an adult, you have to know if you're using and you've been using for a while the effects that come from this. You know what I mean? So it was just crazy for me, like I said, in hindsight now, where I'm at now, just like no chance at fucking making it. You get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Like the odds were just so against me,
That's crazy, because my first time was my friend's mom.
See? That's wild.
And that's what I think about now. The same thing is like, how did she let us do that? Like, I would never, if I had it right now, I wouldn't let you or a kid try it. Like, because you know how bad it is. And it's like, how could you let someone do
crazy.
that?
That's crazy. I didn't know that. See?
No,
your friend's mom, look at that shit, man. The people you entrust the most to guide you and you know what I mean, show you the right way are the ones that kind of like let us on at the end of the day.
Yeah. That's something looking back, it's tough to look at because, like you said, you see clearly as an adult. Like, how can you do that to someone?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Now, did you keep going from there, or did you not get addicted till later on?
So it was weird. It was weird how that played out. Because I was like high that day, no bullshit too. It was like a summer day. I was high for like 8 hours, bro. Like just off my rocker, just gone. And I'm like, holy fuck. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I never even knew I could get this high. You know what I mean? So, but I didn't touch anything after that for I was like 15 or 16. I didn't touch anything again until I went to Dean College. So I actually dropped out of high school my senior year after we won the state championship because, again, like, I had all of these scholarship offers, you know what I mean, from Division I, colleges, but I didn't have the grades. So my guidance counselor pulls me in senior year, and he's like, I got bad news. And I'm like, all right, give me the news. And he's like, well, you're not NCAA, clearinghouse eligible, so you can't accept any of these scholarships that any of these schools offer you. So I'm thinking in my head, like, here we are, we just won the state championship for Class LL, which is the biggest class in the state of Connecticut. We're ranked #1 in the state. I have all these accolades that are going on. Fucking Defensive Player of the Year, New Haven Register All-State, Hartford Current All-State, just killed it. And now I'm getting this news that I can't fucking go to college, essentially, or accept a scholarship. So I'm like, I don't even know what to do at this point. And it was like my parents were kind of like nowhere to be found because at this point, both of them were at the height of the drug addiction with them. Like my mom is fucking, I'm staying with my brother who's I think 2 at the time, and she's out all night, you know what I mean, not coming back till fucking 10, 11 in the morning. So I'm watching my brother, and I missed basically the whole second part of the year, you know what I mean, of school. So I ended up going to Dean College after I went to prep school. Long story short, like some shit happened where they said one of the classes I took at prep school wasn't a college course. So I had signed with UMass Amherst out of prep school, and then I ended up going to Dean. And then when I went to Dean College in Franklin, Massachusetts, that's where I ended up getting an MRI because I had got hurt up there with my back. I had tweaked it prior in high school, but it was just kind of like spasms. But I knew like when I had this time, it was it was something serious, and they found like it was like an angular tear on my L5S1. So they started giving me Vicodin. So once I started taking Vicodin, my mom kind of like came in and was like, she started giving me like 30s, Oxy 30s. She was getting them prescribed, so she was like, come up, give me 4 or 5, a couple Xanax, and that's kind of like how I started to take them, like consistently. You know what I mean? It's like my mom is basically putting me on to using, which is crazy,
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to hear that and think that, like, I mean, I know the doctors were real pill pushers for years.
Yeah.
And then, like we said, like my friend's mom, my stepmom, it's kind of crazy. I don't think a lot of people even knew what they were doing. Like, even the doctors
they didn't. No, they didn't. They didn't. And that's what you can kind of look at it like a lot of people, they didn't know the gravity around it. You know what I mean? At first. But then it's like after a while, you start to see what these things do to people, and you start to see what they do to you. You know what I mean? They strip you of everything, your ambition, your drive, anything you got in terms of goals, you have no goals. You know what I mean? Like, because it puts the substance as the only goal. It's like the end all be all, essentially,
Yeah, well, I mean, I give you a lot of credit. It's very inspiring, even someone from coming from that lifestyle.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
To hear that, man, all the adversity and watching your brother. And that's a lot, man, to be where you are today.
Thank you, bro.
So as things went on, now you're in college, you started to get actually physically addicted probably, right?
Yep.
And then, things must have started to spiral at some point due to the addiction.
So I would say, honestly, it was like my redshirt junior year up at UMass Amherst was probably like the melting pot for me in terms of when it went from kind of just using recreationally, like not really developed any habit, a strong habit at this point. But it was like a 6-month span where in the summer, like early summer of 2008, my stepmom, so the woman that actually introduced me to my first opiate, she ended up ODing and dying. And I was in camp at UMass getting ready for the season, and I get the news, obviously. She ODs and dies, and then, my dad's a wreck and shit. So, I start using kind of more with him, you know what I mean? When I'm coming home for the weekends and, or coming home after the game or chilling after the game, I'm getting high with them, you know what I mean? Because it was like a weird dynamic, bro, where it was like like the grief or whatever you were dealing with in terms of negativity, like negative emotions, I would just suppress that with getting high with my parents, essentially. You know what I mean? Or by myself when they weren't around. But it was so readily accessible through them because they were getting prescriptions. So it was just like, and I was an hour away in Amherst. All right, I'll call you. You got? I'm back home now. So it was a crazy ass, weird world I was living in, where it was just like this shit. Like once that happened, I was like, like every time things are going bad in my life, I'm just resorting to using. I was like, I knew like this ain't it. And then what broke the camel's back was after 6 months after she passed, my dad ended up dying in October of 2008. Same deal. He OD'd and died as well. And that was like, boom, my stepmom had passed away. Father died 6 months later. And then now I'm playing ball. I'm dealing with my back. But now at this point, I'm a full-blown junkie. You know what I mean? And I'm playing, but it's just like, and the people, a couple of my teammates knew, the gravity around, the things I was going through. But I was trying to, keep it together as best as I could. But it was a lot, man. It was definitely a lot. And I didn't end up playing my last game and a half of my redshirt sophomore year, or my redshirt junior year because of all of this. Because it was like I just kind of packed it in mentally. I couldn't deal, and I couldn't keep going. Handling what it took to be, play at the level I was playing, be a student, and deal with all of this other family shit I was dealing with and the addiction at the same time.
Yeah, I can relate. I know that myself. My goal was like play for the Yankees. All I ever did was practice. I'll never forget not having, and that was like last year, high school, just a mental space to show up to practice.
Yeah, bro.
You're already caught up in that. It was like, thinking about it actually emotionally, just having that. I was just like, think of practice, but I can't do it.
Yep.
I can't I can't even put energy into that.
Yep.
It becomes so much, it sucks the life out of you.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah.
And that's the piece where it's like, where you see the substance and it's like you're holding on for dear life because you want to do the things like you said. You want to practice. You want to train. You want to do those things that it takes to be great. At what you're doing, but you just can't. Your mind is not letting you. You know what I mean? Because it's that substance has you. Yeah,
I heard one time in a rehab one too that they're like, why addiction is now a disease is because it attacks the actual primal part of your brain that thinks like you need water, sex, food to keep living.
Yep.
And it attacks the same part. So we actually think, we don't realize, but we think like, if I don't get my Oxycontin today, I'm gonna die. Like,
yeah,
I need
exactly.
it, and that's why we do anything to get it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, bro, it was weird, and you probably experienced this, is like, there'd be days I'll be withdrawn and legit I would be going to grab the stuff, and then as soon as I know in my brain I'm going to grab it, it could be 10 minutes away.
You feel better.
I'm straight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Which is wild, to think.
And I try to tell people and they don't understand. They ask me all these questions about addiction, like, well, like that. Like, well, you're withdrawing. Like, why would you go do more? I'm like, if you knew how good it felt to be like dying, withdrawing, and then like do your first line, like you do anything to get that.
Yes.
It's
exactly
anything.
Legit, bro. And it's that's the ugly side of it all. Like what people don't want to talk about, is like that. You know what I mean? The shit that's like, you don't have no hope. You don't have any aspirations. There are no dreams. There's no nothing. There's nothing to look forward to other than that substance. You know what I mean? Like you can't. You know how it is. You can't go on vacation. You can't do shit. Everything is around that. Oh, I gotta do this. Before I do that, I'm getting high. You know what I mean? And it's non-negotiable. You know what I mean? But then it's like I tell people now, and I think this is the biggest piece. And this is what I tell people with the addiction, if they're struggling and they ask me, like, same thing, like how they've asked you, like, how do you do it? How'd you do it? And I'm honestly, it's like the only way that I was able to do it, honestly, was when I finally was able to like get real clear with myself in terms of like what it was doing to me. You know what I mean? Like the destruction it was truly like causing in my life. And I had to think, I'm like, all right, like, is the euphoria and the high for, whatever it is, 5, 6, 7, 8 hours, is that worth all the destruction that is gonna cause me in my life, and that destruction may not be, a day or in a week or in a month, but years. I'm still paying for, the choices I made now, or excuse me, the choices I made prior. I'm still paying for those choices, today because of, the destruction that I was causing myself through, my choices.
Yeah, and it goes for a while sometimes,
Yeah.
Before we get into the good, what did that look like? Kind of like your rock bottom. Like, what was a moment where got ugly?
Shit. Damn. So I think I would say prison, man. Prison, and even then it was weird how it all happened. But I would say one of the things that truly like broke me in every sense was like prison. So, I came from a family, like my brother, in and out of jail, both my cousins in and out of jail. You know what I mean? They were in the streets, our whole lives essentially, in and out of jail, no structure, no guidance, just running the streets. My cousins, mom, she struggled with alcoholism and just was real violent and stuff like that. So they were in the streets. And then my brother, he was dealing with, my father. So it was the same thing, and his wife. So he was in the streets as well. So, seeing that, seeing these dudes going in and out of jail, I'm thinking, bro, like, this could never be me. Like, I'm on the total opposite side of the spectrum. I'm going to school, I'm playing ball. Like, jail is never even on the radar for me. You know what I mean? I'm thinking, like, I'm that guy that truly thinks at this point in time, this can never happen to me, essentially. So I started getting in trouble, you know what I mean, just with, dumb stuff with my son's mother, you know what I mean, just arguments and violation of protective orders and just bullshit, bro. And it was a lot of, like, just unnecessary, where really I should have been in treatment, right? I should have never went to jail or prison for 2 years. But it was something that I needed, honestly, because now in hindsight, looking at it, to be honest, I'm grateful that happened, because that was probably one of the things that ended up helping me get sober. You know what I mean? Because I truly had to, like, lose everything. I lost everything, all my possessions, my car, clothing. I lost everything, man. Mainly my freedom too. My mind, my time I can't get back with my son. You know what I mean? So I think that was probably the biggest piece was prison, for sure.
So you say you did 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years, yep.
What was the main charge when you went in?
So I ended up pleading guilty to all misdemeanors. It was actually I had a real good lawyer. She did her thing with the case, for sure. But I had violated a bunch of times, and one of the offers they were gonna give me, they said, we'll give you 3 years with 2-year special parole, but you gotta plead guilty to 3 felonies. Or I don't have a record at this time. So I'm like, hell no, I'm not pleading guilty to the felonies. Or they were like, you could take 5 years flat and just, take 3 misdemeanors. And I think the one of the misdemeanors was violating probation. Another one was failure to appear. And then another one was like a lesser charge. I forget exactly what it was, but they were all like small, like, misdemeanors that I pleaded guilty to. So yeah, and I ended up doing with COVID. COVID ended up saving me because people started to get sick in the prison too. So they didn't know what was going on. So right as I went to the parole board to see if I can get parole, they were dealing with all of this COVID stuff in the prisons and stuff. So that kind of helped me out. And I ended up doing, I think, just shy of 2 years. I think it was like 23 and a half months.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, going from like college ball to then that.
Bro.
Like, wild.
Telling me, man. And yeah, bro. It was like a aha moment when that finally happened, bro. When I was finally, like, seeing just the people you're around, you know what I mean? Because majority of the people, and there's some good people in there, don't get me wrong, that just made, mistakes in their lives, for sure. But majority of the people are just, they don't have any dreams, they don't have any aspirations, they don't want to get better, you know what I mean, in any facet of their life. It's just they've accepted what it is, and that's it for them, you know what I mean?
That's life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now, I can remember, it's weird, I was just on a podcast, got interviewed, and I haven't talked about this or even thought about it in a while, but we got to my arrest and stuff, and I just told him like that moment when I was sitting in a cell hunched over like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
And I was like coked out and shit, and it was my last arrest. And I remember just being like, you really don't realize what you're doing, I feel like. And like it hit. And I was like, whoa, like what am I doing? Like I wanted to be in Yankee Stadium, and this is like the 7th jail cell I've been in.
Legit.
Like it's 5 a.m. I'm 30 or I was 26 at that time. Yeah. Like what happened in my life?
Like midlife crisis.
Yeah. But it's kind of like a spiritual awakening. You finally like seeing clearly like what the fuck am I doing here?
Yep.
You know, it's huge.
Yep, it sure is. Man.
So when you got out, did you come out sober, or what was your process look like?
So when I came home from that, I was sober. I wasn't using inside. I wasn't doing anything. I ended up getting my shit together. Came like on the fitness, you know, just really heavy in the fitness. But it was weird because I thought that was the end of, you know, things. Honestly, you know, I thought that was gonna be the end of it. You know, like jail was it. But then a few months after getting back, I didn't have anywhere to go, basically. So I ended up having to go back to my mom's crib, and you know what I mean? I'm back with my mother, and we've been codependent for forever. So that's like, what do you think is gonna happen? It's only a matter of time, right? And that's exactly kind of what ended up happening. And it was like this cycle I was in for the next like I would say probably like 8 months. The next 8 months of living there with her was like, it was like I wanted to get clean so bad, and I would have like weeks sometimes, 2 weeks, you know, sobriety, 3 weeks, a month. I had 6 weeks one time, bro, and I ended up, you know, caving and fucking using. And I'm looking at myself in the mirror like just crying, just like, why the fuck is this happening? You know what I mean? And then my boy, you know, one of my best friends, he's like, I'm gonna tell you like this, because he came from a, you know, similar background. And he's like, bro, the only way you're gonna be able to get sober is you gotta get away from your mother, bro. That's the only, you have to get away from her. I know you love her. She was like, but you gotta let her be. You gotta let her figure out her own life, and you gotta like try and get sober so you can live yours. And he was like, you could come, you know, stay at my shit until you get your shit together, and you know, we'll go from there. And he ended up letting me, you know, crash out at his spot, and that's where things started to take shape. Like after that, you know, after I had that 6 weeks of sobriety and I relapsed, and then I looked in the mirror, bro, and I was like, honestly, like, I can't, the number one thing, and I remember this shit so vividly, it was like, you know, my son is older now, so he's gonna start noticing if I'm not on point, you know what I mean? And that was like a major thing, like, cause I saw my dad, and I saw when he had like, he, you know, waved the white flag, basically, you know, he was fucking in his mid to late 40s, and he had just accepted his life for what it is. Like, his body had failed him. He was like, you know, he was codependent with his wife using drugs, and he was like, yo, like, this is my life. I get prescriptions from the doctor. I like to get high, and I'm in pain, so that's my justification as to why I can get high, essentially. So, and that was it. He accepted that, and he didn't want for better. He didn't say like, yo, I got my son, I got my, you know, my other son. Let me try to, like, I got more life, I got more to give. Let me see if I could like work through this shit and get better for them. And that was like one of the main things where it's like, yo, I got my son. I want him to fucking look at me when I show up to, you know, functions like, this is my dad. He's not fucking around. Look at him. You know what I mean? When I pop up, and he does. Like, I see it in his, you know, his face now. He sees me and shit, and it's like, that's my dad. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a dope feeling. But that was the feeling I had, and the other one was just like, you can't be this dude. And I know you probably felt this way as well, bro. Like, you can't be this dude that had all of this potential and promise, whether it was the sports you played or just other, look at, like, you never thought that your life would bring you down the lane you in now. You know what I mean? With the podcast and shit and the social media, but, you know, look at where you at, you know? And that's what I had in my mind. I'm like, yo, bro, I cannot let this be the end of me, essentially. You know what I mean? I cannot, like, let people see me as this dude that had all of this potential, but then the last thing they knew me for was him being a drug addict, you know?
I want to ask you a question, but first I want to say, like, I know you're going big places, because I remember, for me, I used to, like, practice my autograph, because I thought it'd be for, like, baseball.
Yeah, me too.
And I had one of the coolest moments in sobriety, and now my ego's low, so I don't really care.
Yeah, exactly.
If anything is weird, it's like, why am my drug-ass self, like, giving people autographs? But my first book signing, I was sitting there and, like, kind of got aha moment, like, wow, like, someone like yourself, I could just see meant for big things, and I was like,
Good looks, bro.
it's not the Yankees, but I'm signing autographs.
Yeah,
you know, and
exactly.
It's like, you know, we're meant for that addict
yeah.
mentality brings you anywhere.
Anywhere.
You know? Hardworking, like,
bro.
We've already been through hell and back.
Exactly, bro.
Yeah.
That's the piece, and that's the main thing. Honestly, John, we were lacking when we were getting high. We didn't have access to this mentality, this mindset. You know what I mean?